Hello, everybody out there. This is Kelly Bowlin with Kim Steele Associates. Hey, I'm going to talk to you about something today that's can be a little bit confusing, and a lot of people know a little bit about it, but don't know some of the fine details, and that's 1031 exchanges. These are a valuable way to defer taxes, in some cases eliminate taxes, in a commercial real estate transaction or investment transaction. We all know that when you sell an investment property, there's potential for tremendous either capital gain, ordinary income, or depreciation recapture. And by doing a 1031 exchange, you can defer this. The key is that you have to do what's called a like-kind exchange. And before I get started, I kind of want to mention this is not meant to be legal or accounting advice. If you're going to do a 1031 exchange, you need to talk to your CPA or attorney and basically get the facts straight. But this is just meant to be kind of an overview so you have a little bit of an understanding of how it works and how it can be used. First of all, a 1031 exchange needs to be done through a facilitator or accommodator. We use Exeter in San Diego. They're a very big company. It's not an option. You can't just do a 1031 exchange on your own. You have to use a facilitator or accommodator. They're basically kind of like an intermediary. They work directly with an escrow company to make sure all the laws are properly complied with. Everybody knows that a 1031 exchange involves like-kind property. Well, what is that? Like-kind of property is basically property held for investment. So it could be like a rental property, it could be land held for investment. And it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to exchange it for that exactly. It doesn't have to be land for land. It could be a rental property for investment land. It can't be a principal residence. It can't just be cash. So like-kind exchange property involves doing property that literally is held for investment. Now, one of the things that just the basic tax consideration we all have is when you buy a piece of investment property, you have an existing basis. Let's say you pay $200,000 for a property, maybe you do $50,000 in improvements, you had some costs associated with it, so that your basis for gain or ordinary income might be $250,000. Now let's say it's gone up in value and it's worth $500,000, so a nice round number. You have a basis of $250,000 and it's going to sell for $500,000. With a 1031 exchange, if you follow certain guidelines, you can defer that tax, or as I mentioned, in some cases, eliminate it altogether. What you have to do is identify another piece of investment property, a like-kind property, within 45 days of the close of escrow of the sale of your property. So if you sell that property for $500,000, you've got a $250,000 gain. You've got 45 days from the close of escrow to identify a like-kind property. That means it doesn't necessarily have to close escrow at all, but you have to clearly identify with an APN number and property address. It could be more than one property. You might have one property that you've got a gain of $250,000 on. You could buy two investment properties that equal $500,000. So what you're doing there is, and then once that 45-day period is met, then you have 180 days from the close of that transaction to actually close the deal on what's called the replacement properties. 180 days. Now, during that time, let's just say you close escrow. You've sold the property for $500,000, just for round numbers. You have a basis of $250,000, so you have a $250,000 net gain. Let's say it's cash. That money's held by that accommodator until you actually close escrow on that replacement property that you've identified within 45 days. So what the mistake some people make is when they do a 1031 exchange, they'll make this tremendous gain. The money's held by a third-party accommodator like Exeter, and then they don't complete the replacement property exchange. And therefore, the accommodator actually has to hold the money by law until that 180-day period is up. So you have no access to your funds until you actually close escrow. So some people often ask, is there like a partial exchange? Well, the answer, of course, is yes. If, let's say, you sold your investment property for $500,000 and you buy an investment property for $450,000, a replacement property, well, that means you'd have a $50,000 gain, potentially recognizable gain on that transaction. Also, let's just say you sell that property for $500,000 with a $250,000 basis. You get your $250,000, but you only and you net $250,000, but you only reinvest $200,000 of that into this new replacement property. That difference is called boot, and that boot is taxable either as ordinary income or capital gain, depending on your situation. So on an exchange, one of the things that is little known that a lot of financial planners like to talk about is you can in some cases defer your taxes indefinitely. And here's how you do that. In a property transaction, where let's say we've done this exchange that we're talking about, properties, sells for 500, you got a basis of 250. Well, if you gift that to your heirs in your estate, you're gifting it at the existing basis, so you're basically going to gift them a taxable event on $250,000. However, if you were to die and it is inherited by your estate, the estate inherits it at a stepped-up basis. So they would actually inherit the property at a $500,000 value. So if they were to turn around and sell it for $500,000, they'd have zero tax. So it is a way. So with the 1031 exchange, if it's done, consistently, you can actually avoid the tax altogether. I think that's basically it as far as an exchange goes. You have to use an accommodator. Definitely call your accountant or CPA before you're going to do it. You have two important dates to remember: that 45-day identification period, and then 180 days from close of escrow to actually close the property on the new replacement property. I hope that helps. For you to understand how this works. It can be a complicated transaction. That's why we use a facilitator or accommodator. That's all we have for today. I hope you've enjoyed this, and we'll talk to you soon. Signing out.